everybody. My name's Fusho. Can you hear me okay?
Good.
We're working on fixing the audio for the video, so just hang in with us if you're watching at home. So we're really in the midst of it. This is day 5 for those of us, some of us. Day 11 maybe for some of us. Day 2, day 1, but here we are. Taking time out for ourselves, to be with ourselves and to be with each other in the most precious way. And even if you've been struggling and sitting and waiting to get it and drop in and calm down, I promise you that you already have. It's a hard thing to see when we're in the midst of it, but everybody's already softer. And hopefully that voice inside the head that's pretty loud sometimes is also a little softer. Maybe we can keep giving it a rest just a little bit longer. I just want to encourage you to really enjoy day 5 or whatever day it is for you here. It's just amazing that we come here individually out of our crazy world with all of the jolts and bumps and joys and sorrows and challenges, and come here and at first start sitting down and we're bumping into each other and we're trying so hard to learn what's the role, what's the deal, how do we do this, what's the right way? And then naturally, because of this container, there is harmony that arises. It just happens. And our minds become a little more spacious. And hopefully, as Shinryu encouraged us to do, we can start to just loosen that grip just a little. Just loosen it up. And notice, what am I holding on so tight to? I've loved hearing everyone's responses to our study text and our expressions of Vimalakirti. I loved how Miyoko encouraged us to be gentle and let the form do its magic and allow even that tiniest bit of a shift or change to transform everything. And I love the magic carpet ride that Gesho took us on, that we're still all on here together. And I love that Jisei shared her experience of learning to be a bodhisattva by becoming a chaplain. And where are you? Oh, the tidbit about the people who are dying, and they want you to be all different things, and that's what you do is you meet them where they are. But then you told us they want you to be their lovers. Like as an aside. Like it's a thing. Is that you only know, I guess, if you're a chaplain. And you were sort of like, so that's what we do. I didn't take it literally, but I was like, that's really juicy. In our Shuso, the perfect Vimalakirti model, doing all the things, taking care of all the things, and asking, how is your experience? Because you can scan the barcode and let Wisdom House know if you want. But really, that is what we are looking at right now. How is our experience? And what is our experience? And what is it really? And do we have to look at it? But unfortunately, if we're just sitting on the cushion for so long, yeah, it's gonna come up. That stuff's gonna come up. And it's often really uncomfortable and not very pleasant and can be really painful. But we have this space that we've created that is a safe place to look at it, and to really, be intimate with it. And I just loved what our Fusho said in his letter about his own practice. I loved it so much that he thought he was doing it wrong or right for so long. And that when he first came to Zen, he was sure that he was sick, and Zen would make him better, a better person, a better son, a better partner, a better worker, better student. And so it sounds like there was a lot of time consoling yourself, I'm better, or telling yourself you're worse. But now he says his practice has shifted from better and worse to just enjoying what's here. And somehow that's made all the difference, which is what we're always being pointed at to do, which is the hardest thing. We always want it to be something else, or we think it needs to be better. I need to be better, it needs to be different. This is intolerable. This isn't right, I need to fix it. I need to fix what they're doing. I need to fix what I'm doing. So that we can become holy? I don't know. But I think it's really hard not to think it shouldn't be just this. It can't be just this. And I think Vimalakirti's trying to say, yeah, as humans and bodhisattvas, it is just this. And so, how do we work with that? And the hardest part, which Fusho alluded to also today, I think for most of us, is the fact that no matter how hard we practice, old age, suffering, and death are still there. And it's still gonna happen, and it does happen. And it is happening. And so we can either resist it, deny it, hide from it, or look at it and be in it. But none of that's easy. Even the looking at it is really hard. So part of this reality of suffering is that we don't want to do it. And we still, even though we know it happens, we just think, if I just practice a little harder, can I avoid it? Maybe it won't happen to me. But I haven't heard anybody in interviews say, oh, my life's great. I don't have any obstacles or challenges. Everything's perfect with my family. I just sit in pure bliss the whole day. I don't have any discomfort. I feel great. I'm in perfect health. And everyone I know around me is in perfect health. I haven't heard that. And the bodhisattvas, like the chaplains, they hear the cries of the world. And they recognize that that's part of it. They hear it and they respond. And that's what the Buddha and I think Vimalakirti are saying. And that's why all the other high, elaborate, whatever, fancy Buddhas were very intimidated by, was the fact that they didn't want to face that stuff. Vimalakirti arrives to talk with people in the sickbed without anything else around him. And the Buddha sends everyone to go visit him in the sickbed and see how he's doing. And the Buddha sends Manjushri in chapter 5 to go console the invalid, see how that goes. And Manjushri goes to the sick bed, and Vimalakirti, who I really like, because they point out a lot that he doesn't wear robes. He's just a regular person. So Manjushri asks him, how is he feeling, and how is he, and is your condition tolerable? Is it livable? Are your elements not disturbed? Are you getting worse, better? What's going on? And he calls him householder, which is what we are, by the way. We're householders. And Manjushri asks, householder, whence came this sickness of yours? How long will it continue? How does it stand? How do we get rid of it? And Vimalakirti says, Manjushri, my sickness comes from ignorance and the thirst for existence, and it will last as long as do the sicknesses of all living beings. Were all living beings to be free from sickness, I would also not be sick, because the world consists only of living beings, and sickness is inherent in living in the world. I mean, I've been listening to the service, the sick list chant, and also the people who have just passed when we do the services for 18 years. And there's always somebody on that list. I've never heard a service where there wasn't someone on the list. And lots of new names coming and going, right? So Manjushri asks, how should a bodhisattva console another bodhisattva who's sick? And Vimalakirti says, a bodhisattva should tell them that the body is impermanent, but should not exhort him to renunciation or disgust. He should tell him that the body is miserable, but should not encourage him to find solace and liberation. That the body is selfless, but that living beings should be developed. That the body is peaceful, but not to seek any ultimate calm. So if we're sitting after hours and hours, our bodies don't feel that peaceful. I'm imagining for most of us. But we do sit with it. And it can feel interminable and horrific. And then it changes. And we get up off the cushion. So this whole idea of the sickness and old age and death has got me thinking about how to find happiness or any sense of relief in the midst of all of that. Because all the things come up as we're sitting, right? We have the thing we're holding on to, the thing we're fixated on. We might not feel well, we might be sick. We have an argument, we have a million things. Then we have some joy, we have some sorrow. How can all of those things be happening at the same time? And I think, those are all happening, and then we hear the bell. Or we look outside and the sunlight is streaming through the leaves. And we're encouraged to give ourselves over to everyday mind. And we're reminded over and over, there's nothing sacred to be realized outside of this. Shunryo Suzuki's quote is quite famous. His encouragement or description of how to do it is, without any intentional fancy way of adjusting yourself, to express yourself freely, as you are the most important thing to make yourself happy and to make others happy. You will acquire this kind of ability by practicing Zazen. Zen is not some fancy special art of living. Our teaching is just to live always in reality, in its exact sense, to make our effort moment after moment is our way. And there's a nice, I found a little note about, Layman Pang, was a model. He says, found a note that says Vimalakirti's model of the enlightened layman was matched in China by the famed Chan practitioner known as Layman Chang. And Peng. And after his awakening, his teacher asked if he wanted to put on black robes and become a monk, but he remained a layman. And he's described as wearing the white householder robes in the same way. And when the teacher asked him about his daily activity, Peng responded he did nothing special, but was naturally harmonious, neither grasping nor rejecting anything. And then he uttered the famous line that his wondrous activities were simply carrying water and chopping firewood. So I brought another bodhisattva with me who I think talks about his experience with everyday activities, tragedies, and also more specifically joy, better than I could. And his name is Ross Gay. You probably know this name. Some of you. He's a poet, essayist, teacher. He wrote the Book of Delights and Inciting Joy. And I don't know if Book of Delights was a book club book, Zendo? I'm not sure. Thought maybe we had read it, but I don't know. Anyway, highly recommend it. Book of Delights is something he decided to do when the world was feeling particularly on fire, as it tends to do, and started looking at sort of his everyday life, and said he was going to write about a delight that he encountered every day. And so it's a collection of essays and poems, and it kind of expands and expands, but it's very rooted in just the everyday. And I heard him interviewed on Being. It's a lovely interview. I highly recommend that as well. But he says we're good at fighting and not as good at holding in our imaginations what it is to be adored and preserved and exalted, advocating for what we love, for what we find beautiful and necessary. But without this, he says, we cannot speak meaningfully even about our longings for a more just world, a more whole existence for all. To understand that we are all suffering, and so to practice tenderness and mercy is a quality of what Ross calls adult joy. And so he's continuing this journey. He's wrote some more books about cultivating joy after this one. But there's an excerpt I wanted to share in one of his essays. It's called Joy is Such a Human Madness. And he was inspired by Zadie Smith. And Zadie Smith wrote about joy as well. And she says about joy that it's actually the intolerable that makes life worthwhile. She says that terror exists immediately beside it, right? So it's like you can't have one without the other. And we hear a lot about what you can't have one without the other, the absolute and the relative, for example. She says that terror and delight somehow, she imagines them sitting next to each other, their feet dangling off the side of a bridge very high up. And then Ross shares in the essay that he had a dream, and he's had a few different experiences that he can remember in his mind very clearly, where he understood that he was going to die, that his life would come to an end, the way all of our lives will. But it was this vivid experience where he really understood, I am not going to be here forever. I am impermanent. So how does that affect the way I see my life? He says, it's a feeling he's had outside of dreams as well, an acute understanding, looking at a beloved's back as the blankets gather at her waist and the light comes in through the gauzy shades, lying across her shoulder, watching my mother sleep in her chair, her mouth part open, the skin above her eyes exactly like mine, looking at the line of mourners, tugging the last red fish pepper from the plant. And he also shares one of the most beautiful things he ever heard anyone say came from one of his students, talking about her pedagogical aspirations, or ethos, how she wanted to be as a teacher and what she wanted her classroom to be. She said, "What if we joined our wildernesses together?" Sit with that for a minute. What if we joined our wildernesses together? That the body, the life, might carry a wilderness, an unexplored territory, and that yours and mine might somewhere, somehow meet, might even join. And what if the wilderness, perhaps the densest wild in there, thickets, bogs, swamps, uncrossable ravines and rivers, have I made the metaphor clear? Is our sorrow. Or to use Smith's term, the intolerable. It astonishes me sometimes, no, often, how every person I get to know, everyone, regardless of everything, by which I mean everything, lives with some profound personal sorrow. Brother addicted, mother murdered, dad died in surgery, rejected by their family, cancer came back, evicted, fetus not okay. Everyone, regardless, always, of everything. Not to mention the existential sorrow we all might be afflicted with, which is that we and what we love will soon be annihilated. Which sounds more dramatic than it might. Let me just say dead. Is this sorrow, of which our impending being no more might be the foundation, the great wilderness? Is sorrow the true wild? And if it is, and we join them, your wild to mine, what's that? For joining two is a kind of annihilation. What if we joined our sorrows, I'm saying? I'm saying, what if that is joy?